I'm recording.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right, good day. We are group 2 doing ethical hacking and digital forensics weekend class, and we'll be presenting on cross-site scripting, cross-origin resource sharing, cross-site request forgery. My group members are Kudzaim Daisy, myself, Adzaim Tsambwa, Farai Beta, Marilyn Marifonde, Libert Chikarapo, and Nyasha Mshosho.
Thank you, Fadzi.
All right, so we'll start with cross-site scripting, which is an attack in which cross-site scripting is an attack in which an attacker injects malicious executable scripts into the code of a trusted website or application. An example would be Gmail. If an attacker was to inject some malicious code into Gmail, we wouldn't see it because we all believe it's safe and secure. Cross-site scripting is a type of injection in which an attack threat actor inserts data into a malicious or such as malicious script into content trusted websites, as I have said. Then the goal of it is to run JavaScript on someone else's domain to access their domain. So cross-site scripting uses JavaScript, and the main idea is to inject code through either the URL parameters or user-created parts of the page. For example, the part where you log in and enter your password. Then XSS has variants which are reflected XSS, stored XSS. And on reflected, the JavaScript is there only for a temporary time. And then on the stored XSS, the JavaScript stays there for all other users. And the prerequisites, HTML is not stripped. For example, victim.com echoes a text on the page and allows comments and profiles. Also, domain-based XSS, where the vulnerability exists in client-side code rather than server-side code. Malicious emails can be sent to the victim. How does it work? Step execution number 1. We have a website in which a search field like that one below, you could enter any URL in there. And then step number 2, if the search field is vulnerable, when the user enters any script, e.g. script alert, like that, and we move on to step 3, which is the execution of the script. So when that script is executed, then the attack happens. Moving on, we'll hand over to Farai Beta, who will then start on the impact of XSS vulnerabilities. Farai, over to you.
Okay.
Farai.
I'm Farai Beta. I'll be presenting on the impact of cross-site scripting vulnerabilities. The actual impact of cross-site scripting attacks can generally depend on the nature of the application. For example, in brochureware application, all users can be anonymous and information is public. And this will result in minimal impact of the attack. If the compromised user has elevated privileges, this can also result in the impact being critical. I'll also look on how we prevent cross-site scripting attacks. We can filter input on arrival at the point where there is user input on the websites. We can also encode data on output. Depending on the output context, this might require applying combinations of HTML, URL, JavaScript, and CSS encoding. Cross-site scripting key mitigations. Next slide, Fadzi. We can sanitize or escape user input. We can also do content security policies, CSP. Specify where content scripts, images, media files, etc. that are being included in the website. We can also do cross-site origin resource sharing, CORS. It extends and adds flexibility to the same origin policy, SOP. However, it also provides potential for cross-domain attacks. CORS is not a protection against cross-origin attacks, and as such, cross-site request forgery, CSRF. How does CORS work? When one wants to get a public resource from a different origin, the resource providing server needs to tell the browser that this origin where the request is coming from can access a resource. The browser remembers that and allows cross-origin resource sharing using the following steps. There's a first step involves the client browser request. And the second step involves server response. Third step, browser receives response. I'll hand over the presentation to the next presenter.
Okay, it's Liberty. I'll touch on the cross-site request forgery. This one is an attack that forces an end user to execute unwanted actions on a web application in which they are currently authenticated. So with a little hope of social engineering, like when you have knowledge about the individual, such as sending a link via email or chat, an attacker may trick the user of a web application into executing actions of the attacker's choosing. So if the victim is a normal user, a successful CSRF attack can force the user to perform state-changing requests, like transferring funds, changing their email address, and so forth. So if the victim is an administrative account, CSRF can compromise the entire website. So you can move on to the next slide. So the actual definition of cross-site resource forgery is it's a web security vulnerability that enables an attacker to capitalize on a website's user authenticated session to carry out malicious actions through the user that the user did not intend to execute. You can move to the next slide. So the diagram coming out there is a diagrammatical representation of the whole process of cross-site request forgery attack. So we start with an attacker who has got bad intentions. So the victim logs into the bank, then cookies is set, then it may say, see my picture, then malicious script is executed. Money is transferred to attacker's account in the bank. You can move on to the next slide. Yeah, I think Nyasha, you can take over from this.
Okay, my name is Nyasha. Victim is logged into important.com in a particular browser. Import.com accepts, get or post request for important action. Victim encounters attacker's code in that same browser. Next page. CSRF example, victim logs into important.com and they stay logged within same browser, like any auth token stored in a cookie. Attacker causes the victim to load. This is get request. For post request or to submit a form using JavaScript, transfer money, cast a vote, change the password, and change some setting, etc. Next, why does this work? Recall cookies for important.com are automatically sent as HTTP headers with every HTTP request to important.com. Victim doesn't need to visit the site explicitly, but their browser just needs to send an HTTP request. Basically, the browser is confused depute attack. Next, key mitigations. Check HTTP referral, but this can sometimes be forged. CSRF token randomized value that known to important.com and inserted as hidden field into forms. Key not sent as cookie, but sent as part of request HTTP header form field.
Hello.
Next,
Sorry, Nyasha. Sorry,
yeah.
just to take you a bit, take you backwards a bit. When we are saying keep, maybe for the benefit